in terms of qualifications and tertiary education. So I have a PhD in sustainability, looking at small and medium companies in emerging economies.
Initially, I fell into this sector, working in the not-for-profit sector. I did a one-off job as a Christmas toy collection for one of the large agencies. After that, I really enjoyed working in the sector, and I really realised there was a strong value alignment with myself, and I started to doing some study. At the time, it was through Unitec and their not-for-profit management diploma, and that really helped me get into some more sort of juicy management roles in the not-for-profit sector. There's different organisations which run management courses, a whole different range of them. I've also studied communication techniques for the not-for-profit sector, volunteering workshops, trying to get every opportunity we can to sort of upskill and get some different opportunities within the sector.
I started by studying politics and history at University of Otago and Māui studies as well. And so that gave me a really good grounding in the kind of political environment that I'm working in now. You work a lot with ministers, like giving them advice and not necessarily seeing them, but they always, the decisions that they make impact your work. So I started by studying politics and I got a really good idea from that. And then after that I did the Master of Planning, which is like resource management and looking at the way that our cities run and the decisions that we make and the way that those affect the cities. And so that also gave me a really good grounding in that area of work. And the work that I do now, I'm working in the political environment, kind of working with those sorts of issues. So it's a bit of a mix of both, yeah.
What I did was I went through visual arts, so I did a visual art degree. I did Bachelor of Visual Arts, then I did an honours diploma in art and creativity, and then I flipped into performance. So I did a lot of performance art, fringe festivals, and a lot of public art. So I got really excited about how to create change through happenings, through events that can stimulate emotion.
Yeah, mine was a very roundabout pathway. I started out at Massey. I went to do industrial design, and then I very quickly realised that I was more of an airy-fairy artist than I was an industrial designer, and so I went to art school and did a bachelor's degree in fine arts. It doesn't sound like it relates, but it relates really closely. So a big part of my education was critical studies, which is based on a lot of social sciences, anthropology, and development studies sort of work that you would go and study specifically at Vic. So it was kind of an amalgamation of sociology and anthropology, and it taught me how to think, right? So when I started working for People's, and People's kind of fulfilled all of these needs for me in terms of being able to think about the world more consciously and think about how we can contribute more positively to the world, that was where my degree started to play some really functional roles, just in me being able to conceive how important the work that I was doing was.
I ended up studying public health as a master's in Melbourne, which was much better suited to me because public health is very much kind of looking at interventions at a social level. I specialised in program evaluation, so what that means is trying to figure out how to show that programs are doing what they intend to do. So basically how to tell a story either through data or through interviews. And that was just like a really kind of magical space for me, and it was the first time I really felt like very passionate about what I was doing and my direction, because I was getting to dip in and out of a number of different really interesting programs. So like at that time I worked in youth justice, homelessness, sexual health, domestic violence as well, so just like really in some Aboriginal programs as well, so just like really interesting spaces and spaces where there was some innovation happening and where I could learn a lot.
So my pathway was definitely a bit of a zigzag to get to where I am now. So I was at university studying to be a mechanical engineer and completed that and did a bunch of engineering jobs along the way. Came at the end of that, and no matter how much I owned a piece of machine design or redesigned a mechanical aspect of a production line or on a construction site, if the management above me didn't see eye to eye and they didn't work out their issues, then what I did didn't really matter or have a big difference. So it was from there that I decided, look, I've got to find the place where I can make a bigger difference. And I found these two big words called management consulting. And I was like, oh, that's me, I'll go be a management consultant. And so I actually ended up working for PwC. And while I was working for PwC, I was learning everything I could about the startup space, be that books, be that going to events and meeting as many people as I can, surrounding myself with people that were already in the space. You are the average of the 5 people that surround you. So really surrounding myself with people that I admired. And it wasn't long before I then jumped into throwing up ideas on a board with a bunch of my engineering friends from university. We landed with an idea which was the initial stage of Squawk Squad.
I did a national diploma in youth work, which was awesome. It was super practical, and I learned heaps, and yeah, I thought it was a really cool pathway. And then after that I did a graduate certificate in not-for-profit management, which again was really practice-based. It was about what are you learning and how are you applying it in your work.
So I started out studying, at high school I did all of the sciences, and then I decided I wanted to apply that knowledge about science to the environment. So I went on to study geography and ecology at university, and then from there I found my bent was kind of somewhere in between social and environmental work. So I moved into planning, and I studied the Master of Planning at Otago University.
Well, I never knew that I would end up working in fundraising. I knew when I was 18, 19 that I wanted to work in the not-for-profit sector because I wanted to do good. So my undergraduate degree is in English, literature and language, and I have a master's in culture, policy and management. That included a module on fundraising, which is how I've ended up working in the fundraising sector for the last few years. That was what started me on that path. But yeah, it wasn't what I expected when I studied that, but I think it's a good fit for me. It's a pretty interesting area of work.